north of Trading House Creek Reservoir, that area there. We're preparing to submit a proposal to this body soon for a county tax abatement for the project, and just wanted to stop by ahead of time, introduce ourselves, and tell you what we're doing.
Going to D on proclamations, resolutions. We have nothing this week. Under E, under consent agenda, I have no recommended pulls. Does anyone else have a pull from the consent agenda they want to discuss? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. All right, Dustin.
Yes, sir. Judge, if we could go to item N1, this is discussion and or action on matters regarding COVID-19.
These case numbers have decreased for the hospitals.
All right, Judge, do you want to accept that for recording purposes?
Yes. Is there a motion to accept that report for recording purposes?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
All right, if we could go to item N10, presentation from Texas State Technical College regarding Central Texas Industrial Training Center.
There's a mismatch between the number of jobs that are available and the number of people that are available to fill those positions.
Move to accept for recording purposes. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
All right, if we could go to item N6, this is the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce Monthly Economic Development Report for January 2022.
Know that we have had one project announcement for this first quarter, and that was in McGregor with Messer.
All right, if there's no questions, is there a motion to approve the chamber report for recording purposes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
All right, we can go back up to item F, budget and budget amendments. F1's regarding the FY22 budget. Francis?
FY22 budget amendments, starting with F1A.
Is there a motion to approve F1D through F1I?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Under item G, bids, RFPs, RFQs, G1 is authorization of recommendations. G1A regarding bid 22-004, aggregate surface treatment for delivery and pickup.
All right, what's the pleasure on items G1A?
Motion to approve the purchasing director's recommendations on the bids.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. All right.
All right, item G1B regarding bid 22-005, asphalt emulsions for delivery and pickup.
Not what's the pleasure, court?
Move to approve the recommendation of the purchasing director.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. I'd like to go to item L1. We have Shane Turner and Fiona Bond here. This is regarding the U.S. Department of Treasury Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund American Rescue Plan Act discussion or action regarding the eligible expenses and our funding guidelines, reporting requirements, and funding request. Yeah, I forgot to turn my volume down. Okay.
First time I've seen
Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's call court to order. Today is August the 23rd.
Correct.
Yes. Yes,
2022?
somewhere in there.
Is that a trick question?
Yeah. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, August 18th, 2022 at 3:30 PM.
Thank you. Let's pause briefly for a moment of silence, and then we'll have the pledge to the flags.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thanks, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I recognize everybody here, so I don't think there's any public comments from any of these folks. They will be on the agenda here in a minute. Francis, we're going to get into finishing up the budget items, and we have Judge Bain here to kind of tell us what his needs are, and then maybe questions that he can answer for the commissioner. So, Judge, if you'll come forward.
I brought Crystal with me too, because
Good.
she's much more familiar with the office mechanics.
That's what I hear. Welcome.
All right, we're here talking about a pretrial services clerk and what the duties and responsibilities might be for that. Of course, one of the big things would be to entering the information in the public safety report system from the part-time judges on the weekends, getting all that weekend information compiled and getting it loaded into the system. Also, any other times that those judges may be working. You know, they're not like a JP or my office. They're not gonna have a county office or anything. So we're going to take all of their information, all of their records, everything like that that they generate from the jail. And since we're already set up to hold all that and scan it and record it and all that. And besides, I don't really like the idea of all these different people taking county information to their private offices with them. So we're gonna maintain all of that for them. The other thing that we discussed, or Judge Cates was helping on this, is that what we would call a central location to enter this information for all the criminal courts that enter bond modifications. One of the requirements of the public safety report system is that any bond modifications have to be entered into the system. That could be like increasing bonds, decreasing bonds, adding conditions of bond, like requiring GPS or interlocks or orders to stay away from victims, all those sorts of things. All that has to be entered into the PSRS system. And we've got several, let's see, how many courts now will be handling criminal cases? The district courts and the county courts at law. And Judge Cates has actually prepared a form for the judges to fill out with the information on it, and that form then can be submitted to this central location to be able to enter all that information from the various courts. So we see all that as things for this person to do, but also we can use the help in the office and the IDC and the pretrial for scanning. I know IDC has hundreds of documents that they're behind on getting scanned into their system because they just don't have the time. But that person can assist the offices there in helping out with lots of things on scanning, on taking calls. We get hundreds of calls into the report line that have to be listened to and entered, that, you know, people on PR bonds have called in and that information entered. If somebody is out, it gets pretty busy with, because I have to have somebody with me when I'm doing the jail arraignments, which sometimes takes all morning. And then we have calls, we have people coming in, we have bail bondsmen showing up. We have all sorts of things going on that, and then sometimes the jail, you know, they're short-staffed. We end up having to enter the information to start the whole system. I think last week we had to do it twice. Once because they had a power failure, or because they're short-staffed and don't have anybody to enter the information. And so all of those type of things deplete our staff, and we could really use the help.
Okay.
Do you have any, you know, anything else I might have left out, or? Okay.
Is there any way that we can marry the two systems?
The integration. So when this program came aboard, a lot of counties were asking about that, and the program Automon, they are looking into the integration. A couple of people from IT and myself have set in on some Zoom calls to see about the integration. We've got to see how EDOC can communicate with Automon, what information is needed.
And maybe if EDOC's not gonna work with Automon, then we, you know, might want to find something, you know, we might want to do a cost benefit analysis on what it would be to get something that would.
Yeah.
I know that's high on OCA, Office of Court Administration's list to try to get that integrated.
Right.
And they're having to deal with, all counties use different operating or programs for their systems.
Right,
So
there's no standard.
That's right. And so they are, and IT can speak better on that than I can as far as the programming part of it. But they are trying to get all of that for all these counties to be able to integrate into their system, so we're not having to duplicate the work that we do now. But there is a lot of information that they're having to do, so it's going to take some time.
What, you mentioned that it gets quite difficult at times with people calling in that are on PR bond. How many people are on PR bond on any given day, roughly?
Roughly, we have, in the system, it's showing pending, you know, 500-600 pending PR bonds. That's anywhere from the active cases to the ones that have failed to appear. They can't find, they're still out there. On average call-ins every week, we have anywhere from 150, 160 calls that we're manually listening to those, not to mention the ones that call us directly because they don't want to call the report line, or people that come in because they don't have a phone to call into. So
Is there an automated system out there that can take that piece of that for you guys and receive it and record it somehow? Is there something that would, that's a lot of touches in a week to.
it is a lot, and it does take a lot of time. I believe there are probably systems out there. We have to see which ones would communicate with our EDOC system to be able to do that. We can definitely look into it and see.
I'd be very interested in, the more we can do to be more efficient and make you guys keep getting stretched thinner and thinner and thinner, and we've got to start looking at maybe using technology to help you in that area. So if you guys wouldn't mind researching that, I know I'd be interested in looking at it.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that.
Judge, walk me through a weekend, like the part-time magistrates that go out there that set bond for these accused or people that have been placed in jail. Do they generate physical paperwork, or is it at that point inputted into a system that y'all receive back later?
Kind of both. There is physical paperwork. There's what's called the warning, which lists all, that you have to go over the warnings with them, their rights, if they request a court-appointed attorney, that sort of thing. There's the order of commitment, that when the judge sets the bond amount, then the order commits them to the sheriff's office, to the jail, orders that they be held. There are all the other possible documents, such as protective orders, emergency protective orders, conditions of bond, like for breath interlock, those sorts of things. So there is all that paperwork that ends up coming to us, or to the McGregor JP, or to Judge Villarreal at the moment.
Well, then what happens on the weekend to that paperwork? You said you didn't want it going home to somebody's, or going to somebody's private office.
That we would ask the jail to, first thing Monday morning, to send all that to our office. And that would be just for the part-time judges, their
Right.
paperwork for the weekend.
Right. So the jail holds it until Monday morning, and then would be sent to
And then
you.
an officer brings it over. We would hope we could get them to do that first thing in the morning.
Okay. It appears to me that there's plenty of work out there for this position. That's my opinion.
We just keep getting, as you know, on other things, we just keep getting more, especially when this PSR system came into effect. That
Right.
just
Didn't help any, did it?
Does the
added tremendously.
Does the PSR reports help one in setting?
I'm sorry?
Did we find this document useful to magistrate? This information from the PSR?
Yeah, what we get from the PSR is basically the criminal history of the person, but it's not only Texas, it pulls from other states also.
Is it helpful?
Has it been helpful?
Yes. But I did, the OCA prepared an overview of the PSR system from start to finish, from the time the person is arrested. And you can see there's a lot of steps that it has to go through. I made copies for everybody if you'd like one.
Yeah. And that was presented at TAC, at that meeting. I said at the Texas Association of Counties meeting, it showed that,
And in the small print, I added the other thing that's having to be done. Like this just says information is entered in the PS, which is right. Fortunately, the jails agreed to do that.
Yeah.
They don't have to, but they've agreed to do that. But then I put in here the other things that have to be prepared and presented: warrants, affidavits, warnings, commitments, conditions of bond, emergency protective orders. All those other things have to be prepared and presented to the judge. So,
Pass them around.
all right, thank you.
Add to the list of unfunded mandates.
yes, sir?
Thank you.
Well, if it's, at least it's useful.
Yeah, at least it's making a difference.
So you can kind of tell who you're dealing with.
Probably
I
so.
had a question, and not necessarily for Judge Bain, but for the court. Because I noticed in that report that Frances gave us, where she did a breakdown on the areas in the budget over years that had increased. And one of the areas with a substantial increase over years has been personnel and positions. It seems that has risen over years. And so I remember when Judge Richardson and Judge Villarreal took on magistrate functions pretty much all by themselves, that some consideration was given to their staff, because then they said their people were going to be doing more work because they were taking on this additional function. So, and I don't know how we reconcile it, but it's like we stack people in different places, and now we're talking about centralizing this function with these 3 judges. So we're gonna, when I say centralize, we're pulling it out of the JP offices.
No.
And we're centralizing them.
No, there hadn't.
JPs are gonna continue to do it?
Yes, ma'am.
along with these 3 visiting judges?
Yes, ma'am.
And Richardson,
Okay, I thought that was why we did the 3 visiting judges, because we weren't gonna put that
Well,
on Judge
but I
Richardson,
don't
but
think
Judge
it's all, it's
Villarreal.
just the two,
It's just the two.
just the two.
We don't know how, we don't know if anybody's gonna continue doing it for VRL once he's gone, but Richardson has expressed a desire that he would continue to.
Okay,
to
then
take,
I'm totally confused, because I went into the budget session with the understanding that the reason we were adding 3 more people as far as these magistrate judges is because we were taking it off of the JPs, since Judge Richardson would be doing it solely by himself.
he
so-
would be in the rotation. Richardson would be in the rotation with the
Well,
others.
that goes back to the premise that's in that report. Each budget year, we just stack personnel. We just add people and add people. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but the report bears out, we do that every year. We just add people and add people. So my thought was that since Judge Villarreal was retiring and we were unsure about the new JP for 5, instead of putting it on the shoulders of one JP, with the other JP saying that was just something they did not have the capacity to do, that's why we hired not 1, 2, but 3 new part-time magistrates. Okay, then, so I'm thinking that you're asking for a person centralized down here to do the paperwork of those 3 centralized judges. So I'm trying to reconcile all these new people in a function that we haven't had all these new people. I know we're trying to do a different way, but how do we reconcile all these new people?
And we'll see, no 2 people are working at the same time. And this is to help take strain off of Judge Richardson, so he doesn't have to do this as often. Everybody will do, like each weekend would be a different person. And there wouldn't, Judge Richardson sometimes is down there for 8 hours on a Saturday and 8 hours on a Sunday. I mean, sometimes he's down there for a long time. And that's putting quite a strain for him to do that every other weekend. So, like I said, this is not, nobody's working at the same time. Somebody has a weekend assigned to them or when I'm out. And the centralized, we were talking about that Judge Cates came up with, is for the courts in the courthouse that are doing modifications to their bonds, that they can send to have this person enter those modifications into the system for OCA.
And I know you do a lot of work. I don't want you to think that I don't think that you don't have enough work to justify you and your idea. I'm wondering, is this the most efficient way, though? Because all I'm seeing are body stacking and more people, more people. I believe there's work out there. I know it is unfair to Judge Richardson. And sometimes, just good people kind of get dumped on. But he has carried the brunt of it, and Judge Villarreal. I know Judge Villarreal is going to retire with a lot of expertise. The county's going to lose a lot with him exiting out. My question just is, maybe for contemplation, is this the most efficient solution? And that's not,
And I believe
that's
it is at
rhetorical.
this time.
That's rhetorical.
I guess we've got to operate under these new, we need to, this right here brought so much confusion and doubt about the systems in play, and until you guys get this ironed out and you're comfortable with it, I don't know that we're gonna know what's the most efficient. Am I correct in that, or we're trying to figure out how to make this efficient?
Exactly, yeah, and they put it on this when they were required per statute to implement this. They put it all on each county to decide on the local level how to make it work, but you have to use it. It's required. It's not an option. So we are, working through the kinks and everything else to try to get, and we do believe this is the most efficient, because it's not only, okay, we get the paperwork and let's enter the bail forms. We are required by statute that if there are conditions of bonds, if there are EPOs, we have to mail those to the victims. We've got to get those addresses. Those have to be mailed out. So that's additional work that we have to do on a daily basis. So it's just a lot of extra steps.
I'm trying to extrapolate out what's the new thing. Because I know you all have been working, your process is
That's the new thing.
there's a lot to your process, I understand that, there's a lot of work. I'm trying to extrapolate out what is new. That's what's coming on board with us, that's new, and I understand, the new requirements, as far as that new law on the background checks and all of that. So I'm trying to just figure out what is new that's been put on us. Because you've been doing a lot, but what's been newly put on us that justify, because at the end of the day, we have to justify, I know, to people that will come up to me, well, you didn't approve this raise and you didn't do this, but y'all did do this. So when we justify the 3 magistrates and now another full-time position, what is new that's been put on us?
Besides the PSRS,
That is the,
Is that the law?
that's the big,
Is that the?
that's the
law?
elephant in the room, I guess.
Okay, this is not just your normal process with the new thing infused in it. All of this is new?
Yes.
Senate Bill 8?
Senate Bill 8, it's mandated and not funded.
6.
6, yeah, 6. It's mandated not, and so the,
Okay, and this is the background check, the extensive, this is what this does, just the extensive background check is what
Right,
it
it's
Okay.
it's
That's what I
basically a
thought.
portal that OCA created to link with TLETs.
Mhm.
So that's where all of the extra certifications have to come into play, because we are getting all of those backgrounds and the criminal histories. We have to be certified to be able to view, to be able to run, query those information. But that, it's basically a portal to the TLETs.
See, that's because we're choosing to go with a civilian as opposed to using the personnel at the jail, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's because we're going with a civilian that has to be certified as opposed to going to people currently trained at the jail. We're going with a different method, is
They-
that correct?
Yeah, the people that access this have to be somehow connected with the criminal system, whether they're a county employee or the police or the jail.
6 hours training.
TCIC
Yeah,
or
no, no, I
ECS.
understand
Even me,
that.
I have to
understand
have
that.
2 hours training.
Yeah.
Do they have to have a law license to do it?
For what?
For the part-time magistration? I guess not.
Yes, they have
because-
to, 4 years, they have to be licensed for at least 4 years.
I thought you were talking about pulling the report, but you're right,
That's what I thought we discussed a couple weeks ago, that it had to be a.
but the
licensed
sheriff's
attorney.
department can, because they have the qualification or certification, they can access the reports and pull them and bring it out.
If that person is trained.
Yeah.
Because we've run into the situation where they entered the names into the PSR system, but then they couldn't follow up and pull the reports and everything, or generate the reports because they weren't trained for that next step. They weren't certified for that next step.
Yeah. But that's all we asked them to do, right?
Pardon?
The jail personnel, that's all we asked them to do. That's all we asked them to do.
Yeah, and fortunately, like I've said all along, the jail's been agreeable to use their staff to enter all this. I mean, if we had to enter all that, that would just,
It takes time because you
That'd be
have to
awful.
look per each statute. I mean, it just takes a lot of time.
At the Texas Association of Counties meeting, the sheriffs and judges and commissioners that were there, all said that the jail is very helpful in this process, that they've got access. Repetition's gonna get them better at it, of course.
Right.
But still, you have to do something with this information, and that's where they're stepping in. So in the discussion, Commissioner Miller, that is a good question about adding people. One thing that we ask Anna to do is to evaluate the office and what they're doing we always want to justify adding staff. And so, Anna, if you're on, if you could address what your findings were on that.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I did review comparable counties that we use in the type of comparisons and what their pretrial departments look like quantity-wise. And on average, these comparable counties have almost 5 full-time positions under a pretrial department, but their local inmate count is much lower than our county. So I think finding that would help support the need for an additional staff person, both to support this new function of data entry for the new system, and also to help support staff with their current duties.
And we use this analysis all the time, have been, to justify things that if we can speed up the process, we save money. Or we have a more efficient process, we save money because we're moving things along. And it appears this is one of those that we have to be. If we get tied up in the minutia of pushing all this information onto the right places and we can't do it quickly, I think I'm sticking to the deal that it's gonna cost us more money in a lot of different ways. And so we don't have any choice. It's dictated by Senate Bill 6 to put this together. That's from the support standpoint. The fact that Villarreal is retiring and that Judge Richardson and Judge Bain are at their limit of doing what they can do and probably over that limit, that fixing the problem with 3 part-timers that would add up to about the cost of 1 FTE, if I'm looking at this report right, is seems to me like a reasonable solution.
One other comment or question. This PSR it created some time constraints too, didn't it? As far as getting information and input, you're under a pretty tight window, aren't you?
Yes, we have, the information has to be completed and entered within 72 hours
72 hours of what?
of when the magistrate sees the individual.
So if they meet them on a Saturday, does the clock start ticking
Yes,
then?
exactly. Saturday morning, then that 72 hours starts.
Wow, okay.
But there's also a clock that starts when the arrest, when they're
Right, 48 hours from the time
48
of
there,
arrest.
and then 72 after that. So
Right.
So there's a lot of information that has to be squeezed into a short.
That's why we need the jail to get us that information as quickly as
Right,
possible Monday
certainly,
morning,
yeah.
so they can start entering all that.
And then back to the part-time magistrates, if and when they're chosen, will we be notified of who they are and how will that take place, Judge?
I'm sure they will.
yes.
We have to
We'll
certify.
bring it in as a report. Dustin, remind me what we had talked about in regards to the court approval, and then, the judge's input on that as well.
So Judge, the Commissioners Court creates those positions and then it's up to not necessarily, I guess it's the judges that hear criminal matters. They will appoint those 3 positions and then we can bring that, that appointment list to the court for recording purposes.
All right, thank you.
So we don't necessarily approve their hire, but,
We do, but the recommendation.
so we just, it's like we always do. We create the spot and
And
they hire who they want.
Yeah, the district judges, I think.
Right.
That's how it was set up.
And then then we, I guess, ratify.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm good.
Any other questions or comments?
I've got a CT scan I gotta get to.
Good luck.
All right, may I be excused?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Crystal. All right. Dustin, is there what do we do on this particular matter?
So Judge, I think, of course, any change after the proposed budget's filed needs a record vote. So I think the question before the court today is just on that one personnel spot that would be added under the pretrial offices. And Francis or Anna can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, so it would be an addition of a position titled Pretrial Services Clerk. HR has classified that as a B4. The total cost that we would amend the budget by would be $61,100. So that includes the salary, all the fringes and benefits, health insurance, life insurance, and then also an estimate of furniture and equipment, including computer equipment that would be needed for a new person in that office.
Okay. And, what, budget item, I mean, what agenda item is that?
Under D1A.
Okay, under D1A, what's the pleasure of the court?
Make a motion to approve the new position requested by pretrial services.
Second.
Have a motion, second, any other discussion? No other discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Pass. Okay. So Francis, I think you take it from here.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we have a few other items that we need to look at as far as changes to the proposed budget go. We passed out a sheet that outlines those changes that have been made since the end of July. Last Tuesday, August 16th, we went through some changes and you approved that listing, so you'll see those in that first column. If you want to, I won't go back over those again this week, but if you have questions, please let us know. But then we need to go over changes since last week in that second column. So one item here, we need to increase the request is to increase capital outlay for next year. Lisa Fetch presented this on the last agenda. There was a change in the cost of this capital outlay item, this Forta client analyzer expansion. So that was budgeted in this current year, but the thought was that it was not going to be complete, so we need to rebudget it for next year. And we have got confirmation that we do need to rebudget it for next year. So that's going to change that capital outlay line item by $10,926.
And conversely, this year's budget will be or
Yes.
carryover will be increased by the same amount.
Yes, we won't be spending that in this current year. Next, on the second page, the next item in that second column is under emergency management. Last week, we spoke on the decrease in that budget that the court was asked to be responsible for in relation with the city of Waco. We talked about the amount that was in their budget that was related to the sirens that were within the city of Waco. We had given you a number that 15,000 of the budget was related to the sirens. Elizabeth solidified that number a little more and found some other items that were related to the maintenance of those sirens. So it ended up being a total of $38,500 that was embedded in that budget that was related to the sirens. So we have decreased that budget by half of that, which was what they were asking the county to fund. I know the consensus was the amounts that were related to those sirens we didn't want to cover as far as the county's expenses. So we've increased that budget an additional $19,250. Next, just
So the total decrease would be 60, well, more than that, 72?
Yes, $72,657.
Correct.
And then right under it, juvenile probation, we talked about that last week and made adjustments to the transfer, but this was just a cleanup item, a drop of $2 just to make amounts tie back and forth. The next item is our core health contract for the medical departments at both correctional facilities. This will be on an upcoming agenda. The company has requested a 3% increase. I know that this has not been approved by you yet as far as the contract goes, but it's a fairly large amount that would increase the contract. So we're recommending that we go ahead and increase those line items so we don't have to amend the budget after the year starts next year. Of course, if you do not approve that change in the contract, then we wouldn't spend those funds here, but that totaled $32,971.
That's not a mid-year contract increase, that's the new contract
upcoming year.
increase for the upcoming year.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's 3%. The next item is the line item that we had for the Mart Road project. We had that as projected as being spent in this last year, or current year, excuse me. We foresee that will, of course, roll into next year, as from what I gather on the status reports that we've been getting. So again, something that we're not spending in budget this year that we had projected we would, and we need to go ahead and
Are
increase.
we sure of that? Because when I talked to the mayor, that they thought they would get that finished up, before this budget year was over with, but.
So if you have that I mean, I'll lean on you for that information if you think that is the case. Again, just because it was a larger amount.
I
had to
asked
go in
him,
a bond.
it's been 3 or 4 weeks ago. Has anybody talked to him since then?
No.
Okay.
Why don't we just, do we want to advance them the money or?
We generally don't until the project's done.
But if it's, what if you're just waiting on
Yeah.
certificate of completion or whatever?
They were doing they weren't doing those county connecting roads until the last piece of it, because they wanted to get a lot of the neighborhoods taken care of, because that's where the
I understand.
heat is, and and so, but they were moving along pretty good, pretty fast. I can, I'll call over there today and see what I can find out, unless Mr. Miller will do that with the city manager over there, or the mayor.
I'll call Kevin.
Yeah, okay.
I know what I got
That'd be
from
good.
Zane, the work wasn't done.
Well, I know the
But
work
we can
wasn't
see-
done,
We
yeah.
can see about the schedule. I mean, as far as
He-
advancing the money,
Right.
so we just need to see the
Zane's going over
schedule.
there looking, but we gotta ask, because I don't know what their plans are,
That's,
because
yeah.
I was
we
told
see the
last
schedule.
time that they thought they'd have it all done.
Okay. And like you said, if there's substantial completion by the end of September and y'all are happy with that
Yeah.
work that's been done. So we'll hold off for that and maybe over this next week before
Okay.
we adopt. I just didn't want to put us in a bind and have to increase the budget by that amount.
But I'm glad to see what you're doing, and that is, we have the money for this year if they finish, and if not, whatever that balance is, we're gonna roll it over.
Roll.
Yes.
Because I also don't want to put them under the gun.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think they wanna get it, but of course, yeah, y'all know better than I do, but you need to do this when the weather's right. Mm-hmm. Warm enough temperature.
And so IT assessments, multiple purchases have been made to eat at that list for next year and this current year. With current budgeted funds, you've seen those budget amendments come forward each week. So that's we're decreasing that line item by $17,198.
What was that again? Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah. IT assessment, yeah.
And then the county court at law court reporters. We discussed this last week. There was an additional 3% increase that the Board of District Judges gave to the district court reporters. So consistently, you've kept county court at law court reporters in sync. And so the consensus was to continue to do that. And so you'll see there the cost is total for the 3 courts is $10,070. And so we can take those as an action item with the exception of the MART project. We'll see if there's some more information we can gather with the help of y'all before next week. But then you can see there at the bottom, and this does include that MART line, that net change between the changes we agreed to last week and this week is an increase of $69,938 to the proposed budget.
Understanding that there is some adjustments to current year budget because of that.
Now, how much
Correct.
is gonna roll? Do you know how much will the beginning fund balance increase?
Because of some of these.
Uh-huh.
If Mark finishes this year.
Yeah.
So it would be just that. 13,487. Plus, and then we had that one capital outlay line item as well. So for this week, it's $130,413. And when we look at we can look at the summary here in a minute. And what we did, we went ahead and loaded these in so you could see how it looked, but we've adjusted that projected fund balance. So
Great.
it is net zero on the ending number.
So there needs to be a motion to approve the changes to the proposed budget with the exception of the Mart Road project, or what?
That is correct.
Second.
I'll make that in the motion.
He read your mind.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So just to be clear, when you say with the exception of the Mart project, that we could come back and approve it.
Yes, sir.
Model will amend this. We'll have additional action to.
But we'll need to know.
Yeah.
So next Tuesday, you know, we'll have a meeting during the day, a normal fifth Tuesday meeting. So we'll have a budget item. We
Yeah.
could revisit this. We could decide,
Yeah.
put it in or not. And then that way, when we come in that evening,
Right.
we'll be ready to go.
Okay. All right, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
So for the general fund, I know there's an executive session item that you wanted to discuss, and I think you're gonna do that at the end, so
Yeah.
tell me if you want to do otherwise. But just to look at the summary again, and those items that you just approved are loaded in here. They've either affected the beginning fund balance, or they've affected, and then also affected the total expenditures. So you'll see there, we're looking at, with the proposed tax rate, an ending fund balance of right over $53 million. You know, last Tuesday, we threw around some scenarios of, you know, what an additional $3 million on the budget look like for certain projects. But, you know, it was just, that's just still loaded in there as where we were just discussing last week, just playing around with numbers. And so just wanted to get that in front of you. If there's any discussion that you wanted to have about fund balances or tax rates, I think now is a good time to do so.
Okay, I'm just thinking whether that executive session item might be, will it affect? I mean, there's no action to be taken on that settlement agreement until the following week, but I wanted to be sure everybody.
Yes, so if you add, of course, expenditures in this current year, and we go ahead and, you know, you can move money around and take care of
Okay.
items this year, then it's gonna affect your beginning fund balance.
And under the proposed settlement agreement, it wouldn't, well, we would have to buy that liability. So.
But if you could do
If the
something
court approved
before.
it and the city approved it, we'd have to buy that liability back at 3.9 million and change. So where would we take that money from?
So if we could do it before September 30th.
Yeah,
We
before
could do budget amendments and move money to the correct line item, and then we can go ahead and use excess fund balance in this current year.
Okay.
So then
Could
that
we
would.
use bond funds also too?
On buying a debt down,
I don't think so, and it may be something, depending on the wording, we might need to.
Dustin, do you have an answer to
Agreement.
that?
I would say that we probably couldn't due to the wording of the bond since, well, and I don't want to, can't go too far into the settlement agreement either, being an open session since it's confidential at this time.
Okay. All right, well, then maybe what we should do is go into executive session and I'd like to leave, do we have anything to discuss after we?
Yes, I need to go through some of the other funds that are not related to the tax rate, so.
Why don't we do
it shouldn't
that?
take very long.
Yeah, let's get.
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
And that way, when we go into executive session, anybody else, they can just go back to their office.
Perfect, okay.
With the exception of you.
And then I just also, just to summarize, you know, this budget has a 9% COLA for almost all employees. The retirement rate is affected, the rate's been affected by a 5% COLA for retirees. You know, you've taken into account all the new positions and changes to positions that were requested and made, you know, good decisions on those, and so those needs have been addressed. And so then proposed a tax rate of 0.376355, and that's a 4.9 cent drop from the current rate, about 11.5% drop in the rate.
11.5% drop and a 4.9 cent drop.
Correct.
Okay.
If you look at the current rate versus the proposed.
And the current
So
proposed rate is below the no new revenue rate.
it is right below the no new revenue.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you some facts there.
And the-
Okay.
And the ending fund balance is 50 million and some change.
Yes,
see that
as
a
we
little
stand right now, right over 53 million would be the estimate,
Okay. So, okay,
without any, other large projects that may come up.
okay.
But if you took out 3.9, what does that look like?
Takes it slightly under, but
Well, you've got the 3 in, right? You've already baked that in, the 3.
No, I was gonna say,
Nothing's baked in.
Well, if you'll go down, she's got a $3 million figure in there
For something.
that already puts us right at.
100,000. So just do 3 million there. We had some numbers in the projection to take care of some of the prior debt, so
Right.
kind of making that, that adjustment so you could see what it looks like. So that would, changes to the current year budget, that would end in a result, that would end with a fund balance of almost 67.5 million. And then that would end you right over 50 million as an ending fund balance.
And now that no new revenue rate, it falls a little bit under because of the new properties? What brings it under the no new revenue rate? 'Cause I
So
thought-
when you did propose the no new revenue rate. A few days after the tax office had to make some adjustments to their calculation sheets. And so the rate you actually proposed, it up to the no new revenue rate very, very slightly, like 4 or 5 decimals out. And so that's why the proposed rate is slightly under the no new revenue rate.
Because of that adjustment the tax office made.
Yeah.
The levy amount is inconsequential, but the rate is the rate, so.
So what if you lowered the rate to 0.37?
So that'll put you at about 48.7 million ending fund balance, right under 35% of your fund balance goal. And that lowered your levy, sorry, go ahead.
Can she zoom out so we can see the difference?
Oh, sure.
So about 2.6 million above the goal.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? All right.
So I think for general fund, that's everything that we know of that we need to bring to you. So
Okay.
we'll, next Tuesday is our day. So, if there's any other thoughts you have through this next week or anything pops into your mind, just, let us know. And that way we can address it if we need to early on next Tuesday.
Okay.
So I need to just cover some special revenue fund information for you. This special revenue funds always kind of get pushed to the end because they do not affect the tax rate. The tax rate does not affect them. There is one we'll talk about, but so the special revenue funds are in one spreadsheet on your budget workshop drive, and there's a tab for each fund. So they are used to account for specific fees and court costs that are collected and can only be used for specific purposes. Our intent should be that we use these funds first for their intended purpose before we are going to, to the general fund. They're not funds that you really want fund balance to build up in. It does sometimes because the uses are very specific. But those funds were set up for specific reasons to help defray the certain cost. So, we talk about unfunded mandates frequently, and so these are here to help with certain costs. This year, we've really pushed these funds to be used to their full potential more than we have in the past. We've really tried to get everything we can out of them. Senate Bill 41 went into effect January 1st of 2022. And one of the things that changed was it consolidated all of the civil fees. They consolidated the criminal fees 2 years before that. So those changes, when they start changing the criminal and civil fees, it has amended some of the court cost and fees, the special revenue funds that they create, what they can be used for. It's repealed some of them, it's modified some, and it's added some. So that's why I really wanted to go over these this year, because there are some substantial changes. I know there's many to go through, but I want to just give you some facts about each one. If you want to stop me, just stop me. The budgets are fairly comparable to last year. So just like we do in general fund, if there's not a lot of change, these were all in the proposed budget. So if there's not anything I need to point out to you, we won't dwell on the budgets. But again, let us know if you want to. So just starting with Fund 10, this is what we call the Records Management Fund. This is a fund that will be phased out due to the consolidation of civil fees. If spending is consistent with this fund this year as it has been in other years, we have enough in fund balance to fund about 2 more years of expenditures, so 2023 and 2024, before it completely dwindles. We are currently using this for the operating expenses for our archives department. So our archives department, all of their, not personnel, but all of their operating expenses are here. So sometime around the end of 2024, we are going to have to transition these expenses over to general fund. So I just want to give you that heads up. In the budget, there's just a couple things.
But is there, so are the fees less then?
So this part of the records management fund that was just a general records management fund, it's no longer there.
So we're not going to be able to charge that?
Correct.
anymore.
There's some other funds that have replaced that. This fund could be used for many records management purposes in the county. Just historically, our county has used it for the archives department.
Following up with Commissioner Jones' line of thought, who's the winners and who's the losers in this? Because
What's the
The
score?
money will still be going in, it'll
What's
just
the
come in as
scorecard
general
look,
fund.
what's the scorecard look like,
So this one was a piece that has been, this fund is no longer in existence. There's no longer any piece that gets fed into it.
There's no longer a feeding
Yes.
end of it.
There's no piece of a court cost that says it's to be placed in a records management fund to be used for blah, blah, blah. So this one has gone away.
So the expenses
is
will be
that-
there, but there won't be any revenue to offset it?
So you'll have to.
Bottom line?
another unfunded mandate.
You'll have to move it over to the general fund. You'll have to,
The
you have to.
expenditure part will have to come out of general fund.
Correct.
But there's nothing in there to balance it out anymore.
There's been a fund balance that's been built up in there. for
Right,
unspent.
that will, but once that's gone,
Yes,
then it falls on the shoulders of the general fund to expend.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Here's my question.
Yes.
Say you file, and you may not know the answer, but say you file a civil case,
Uh-huh.
and are the total fees going up or down
So let me look at the comparison.
that we can
Yes,
charge?
This is, and that's part of whenever we audit any of these fee offices, we are nitpicking each one of those transactions. But the new civil, I'm trying to remember. I need my field auditors here. The new base civil filing fee is $350. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what the total was.
And we don't have to spend
Yes,
any more
we
than-
have it all laid out. It's,
any more.
like
You can
volumes of this.
just email me that.
I will,
that
I will,
information.
what it was
All right.
before compared to
Let's
now.
just go on.
Yes.
So, this-
And, and there's different civil based on if it's a misdemeanor, what level of misdemeanor, if it's a felony, if it's a I'm sorry, on criminal, but on civil, the different levels of civil, criminal. Some court costs are just for certain ones, some apply to all of them. So it's kind of a table that you have to navigate to figure out, you know, each specific instance. But I will get you what it was before and what it is now.
No worries.
For sure.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. So in this budget, I just wanted to point out that there's a line item that says professional services. That is going to be used primarily to fund the DA felony files scanning effort. And this will speed up the process of destruction of hard copies and create more room at the archives facility. And capital outlay purchases, they've got there of $20,900. That is shelving to replace the 2 mobile units that are being moved to the district clerk's office, and then also includes a new copier, printer, fax unit to replace their existing machine.
That's how long I talked. What? I'll tell you after a while.
So then Fund 15 is our
Yeah,
courthouse
right.
security fund. We use this to account for what is known as security funds. They are cost of the court, collected on misdemeanor offenses in county court of law, district court, and justice courts. The money deposited into this fund can only be used for security personnel, services, and items that are related to buildings and house the operations of these courts. So court is in the building, you may use the courthouse security fund for cost. Currently, this fund is housing the personnel cost of one of our courthouse security personnel. So the salary and the fringes and benefits are for one of those personnel is coming from this fund. We also house here the operating cost of our courthouse security department. Other than the cost of living adjustment to the full-time position, there were no other changes other than a request in capital outlay for a security system upgrade. And we covered that last week. We talked about that as a change.
How much was that?
$56,717.
And we spent a ton of money a few years ago.
We did.
But you've always got to be upgrading and things like that, or you get behind the curve, and you have to spend a ton of money. So if you let's.
And that's coming out of that courthouse security fund?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Deferred
Which has to be spent on courthouse security.
Okay. Always, of course, and the other judges, but deferred maintenance always causes us to have to pay more, in my opinion. So.
Obsolescence of technology has to be upgraded.
And this is a fund that we see, because it's on all misdemeanors, we see that the revenues are increasing each year. So this fund will remain, and so it is sufficient to cover the cost of that department. Next, we have Fund 75. This is what we call our Economic Development Fund. This is where our WIMDEC funds are held. This fund on our books is for bookkeeping purposes, but it appears as a committed portion of our fund balance in the general fund if you look at our financial statements. The transfer in here has been updated to reflect the transfer you approved out of the general fund. And then we budget the entire fund balance to use as projects are completed and the cost arise. Fund 116 is our Farm to Market Roads Fund. This fund is always been used to account for the revenues from ad valorem taxes that were the end result from our Farm to Market lateral roads tax levy. We have not collected current taxes in this fund since 2013. That's when we cut that part of our tax rate. But delinquent taxes continue to roll in, and you'll see they will, over the next few years, they should get almost down to nothing. But we do split the fund balance by road miles between the precincts. And so, a portion of your budget, you can see there, it's a very small portion this next year, but those lines can be used here for your departments. Fund 120, this is our County Records Management and Preservation Fund for the district clerk. This is a fund that is, will no longer be in existence. Well, I say that. Fund 120, what it was before, we are repurposing this fund. It was before the Records Management Fund District Clerk, but we're gonna repurpose it. The new name is the County Records Management and Preservation Fund for the District Clerk. And the titles for the funds are very specific from the statutes, which is why they're kind of long. And the Senate Bill 41 did repeal the statutes that were related to the original records management fees, which we talked about earlier. And then through the consolidation of the civil fees, this fund was created. It may be only used for records management and preservation services performed by the district clerk. The budget that is in there is the same budget as the previous year. Fund 122, same story, just a different office. So this is the County Records Management and Preservation Fund for the county clerk. And again, previously you would have seen that as the Records Management Fund County Clerk, but we are just going to repurpose it and use it for the new title. For budget changes this year for Fund 122, the county clerk is requesting a budget of $25,000 in furniture and equipment for the purchase of office workstations and chairs. And then in the capital outlay line item, they have an amount there to accommodate 2 Cardex file machines. So they're large electronic filing systems that they use in their office. Fund 125 is our Court Record Preservation Fund. This is another fund that is being phased out due to the change in consolidating civil court cost. The statute was repealed that related to the collection of this court cost. The fund will continue to hold only the remaining fund balance, and then will be spent accordingly. It's used to digitize court records and preserve the records from natural disasters. If the spending is consistent, like we talked about earlier, this fund has enough for probably 2 more fiscal years. But again, just depends on the spending patterns. Items that are here can be moved over into that fund we just talked about, the County Records Management and Preservation Fund for the district clerk. So the district clerk has always had multiple funds, and we can look at moving some of those funds into one of the other special revenue funds when this fund is exhausted. Fund 130 is our Justice Court Building Security Fund. It's used to account for a portion of the security fees, which are costs of the court collected on misdemeanor offenses, specifically in a justice court. The fund can only be used for providing security personnel, services, and items for a justice court that is not located within the main courthouse. So for 2, 3, 4, and 5, this fund can be used. What we have budgeted here is the electronic security monitoring cost for those 4 buildings. So you'll see about $360 is the annual cost for the monitoring for those systems. This is a fund that we balance, that the remaining balance we put in contingencies. So as needs arise and meet this fund's eligibility requirements, we can do budget amendments here and move and catch those costs here if needed. So you'll have things come up
Is this
frequently.
a fund that will continue to be collected?
Yes, this is a continued fund.
And we don't take any personnel out of it, security personnel at these courts?
We do not. If the balance isn't enough, if the revenue coming in each year isn't really enough to satisfy a whole, a position each year, you'd be bouncing it back and forth from one fund to the other. So this one has just been used for more security items, upgrades, security systems. But definitely, if it meets the need of the fund, then we can always put something here. Fund 140 is our Justice Court Assistance and Technology Fund. This accounts for what they call the Justice Court Technology Fee. It is also on misdemeanor offenses, specifically in a justice court. It is used or can only be used to finance the purchase and maintenance of technological enhancements for the justice courts, and then also for the cost of continuing education and training for the clerks and the judges in relation to those enhancements. Currently, what we use this fund for is our EDOC maintenance fees. Any portion that is not able to be covered here, though, will be in the general fund. So, you know, our EDOC maintenance fees are set by contract, so we get as much as we can out of here, but you will see the remaining pieces in the general fund for the total cost. Fund 142 is our, did I skip one? Fund 141, Justice Court Support Fund. So this is a new fund that was created by Senate Bill 41. A portion of the civil consolidated fees, it's $25, and that is collected through the justice courts again. The way the statute reads, it says that the money allocated to this fund may only be used by a county to defray the cost of services provided by a justice court. So I took a lot of, I don't know, I focused on when it says to defray the cost, and I felt like we should use this to defray our costs, not to, you know, the technology fund says for enhancements. I think this should be to defray the cost that we already incur. So what we did, because this was new, and you can tell me you disagree here, we thought that the best way to maybe approach this was we moved a portion, an equal portion out of each JP office of full-time employees, and we're budgeting it here. So you'll see $15,000 for each court that we have on the other side. In the general fund, we've lowered that, the personnel side. So 6, 7, 8. So with the 6 JPs, this fund is helping accommodate $90,000 in personnel expenditures that we usually were charging to the general fund.
Good.
And
Good.
you know, we started collecting this in January, and I think just based on revenues we've already seen so far, this fund should be able to accommodate that $90,000 each year. There is some in contingencies as well. So as a need arises mid-year for one of the JP offices, we can utilize that contingency as well.
Sounds like a good way to handle it.
And as you know, as people ask for budget amendments through the year, we always try to steer them to these funds if possible. So. Okay. Fund 142, County and District Court Technology Fund. It's used to account for our county and district court technology fee. It can only be used for the purchase and maintenance of technological enhancements for a county court, statutory county court, or district court, and the cost of education and training related to those enhancements. Currently, like we said before, we're using this for annual EDOC maintenance for the portion of the EDOC systems that touches those specific courts. Fund 143, a new fund. This is titled the Court Facility Fee Fund. So I think this one's a really interesting one. It was also created by Senate Bill 41. A $20 portion of the consolidated civil fees go into this fund, and this fund can only be used to fund the construction, renovation, or improvement of facilities that house the courts, or you can actually use it to pay the principal of, interest, and cost of issuances of bonds, including refunding bonds that are issued for improvement and construction of these facilities. So you can see here we are estimating revenues next year of about $60,000. We had already collected, of course, some since January. So we're looking at a fund balance at the end of next year of $117,000. So that is something that you know, we may want to move some cost here out of some of our permanent improvement funds. You may just want to sit on this and wait till a need arises.
Well, building the new courts, there are gonna be some soft cost in there that might not be appropriate for a bond that we could handle.
Correct.
I'm just thinking
Yes.
that might be a.
Yes. No, for sure. And I think, so it's, I wanted you to know that it was here, and then it'll just continue to grow until we do a budget amendment. We just set up lines for each building that does house a court. So if a need arises, we can move into it. We also set up a line item that just says transfer to debt service fund. So, you know, if it's something at some point, we just want to move that money over to help pay debt service on bonds, that's available
So
as well.
at the end of once we start the projects and we didn't use this money, then at the end of the year, I guess we can just transfer it over to debt service.
We could, or you can just let it sit.
Or
You
let
can
it,
just
okay,
sit
you
here.
can let it sit?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I would do that.
And that's
Good.
$20? Did you say 20?
It's,
How much?
this one is,
20?
it's $20 of the
20.
consolidated civil
Okay.
fees.
Okay, consolidation, okay.
Next is Fund 144. This is our District Court Records Technology Fund. This is one that is going away also. Due to Senate Bill 41, that statute was repealed. Again, it will continue to hold the remaining fund balance until it is spent down. And historically, we've used this to cover a portion of the district clerk's budget, including a portion of one of his staff. So again, when this probably another about 2 years as well, we will either need to transition the cost to another special revenue fund, which is a possibility, or to the general fund. And the budget is the same as previously entered last year. Fund 145 is our truancy court fund. So this fund was established to account for truancy court costs. The expenditures can only be spent to offset the cost of the operations of the truancy court. So there is not a lot of revenue that goes into this fund. You can see there at $600 a year. So because of that, we've never really utilized this. So what we're proposing this year is just to go ahead and eat up that fund balance. We haven't had another need for it. We are proposing that we use the $8,000 to cover a portion of salaries in the JP offices. Again, that's freeing up some budget in the general fund for this year. We placed it in JP5 because they do see a large amount of truancies. I do know that all the judges, do have truancy cases, but just because they see the biggest volume, we moved it there. So you would have seen that decrease in the general fund for that accommodation. So I just hate for it to just sit and not be used. If we could go ahead and free up some funds in
And
general.
you say it's going, is it going away?
No, it's a
It will
continued one.
continue, and
It's just small.
It's a very small amount, okay.
Fund 150 is our court reporter service fund. So this is established to account for what they call the court reporter service fees. They are collected for courts that have an official court reporter. And we use it to maintain the court reporter who's available for assignment within the courts. Currently, what we do is we spread the fund balance each year. This is an old fund between multiple courts to help cover the cost of substitute court reporters and transcription services. So we've always
Substitute, not the existing.
so both substitute if someone does have to come in to relieve another, but transcription services if one of our current court reporters bills for transcription outside the courtroom. And so we have the budgets placed just based on the use of the court reporter lines. What we did this year was we increased these lines so that we could use this fund a little more. The revenues increased over the years. So again, we've accommodated these increases here with decreases in the general fund. This fund can also be used if a need comes up for court reporter equipment. Sometimes that happens mid-year and they have to have a replacement to keep going. So you can see there's some money there in contingencies that can be utilized if that request is made. Fund 151 is another new fund created by Senate Bill 41 again. A $3 portion of the civil consolidated fees goes into this fund. It is collected in county, district, and justice courts. And it can only be used to provide language access services for individuals appearing before that court. And so what we did was we made a line item for each of those courts, and then again, just looked at the activity that was occurring in the general fund, and then made a budget here to kind of reflect what was happening in general fund. So again, decreases made in general fund to accommodate these. These expenses, I feel like they grow each year. So I think this was a great fund that they set up that can be used to minimize cost elsewhere.
That one will grow.
Yes, sir. And as you know, this fund and the court reporter service fund, what happens is invoices come in for these types of expenses. We eat at the special revenue fund first, and then we'll move into general fund if needed. So that's kind of how we operate through the year. Fund 155, Dispute Resolution Fund. It accounts for the statutory fees that are collected by the district and county clerks, and for the expenditures of those funds, which is the purchase of mediation services. And then we use this fund to cover a portion of our contract with the McLennan County Resolution Center. Fund 160 is Family Protection Fund. This one is phased out as well. The statute was repealed, also included in Senate Bill 41. The fund will continue to hold this amount of fund balance until used. Historically, we have, and you can see there that it will be used this year, but we use it to cover a portion of our agreement that we have with the Advocacy Center. And so that covers that each year. Each year we're cleaning out this fund. But again, small amount there, but
$110?
$110.
So you expect it to be expended all this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then we will dissolve it.
It's a nickel and dime business, Commissioner.
Fund 162 is our Child Abuse Prevention Fund. This is was established to account for fees collected on certain child sexual assault convictions. It can only be used to fund child abuse prevention programs within the county. And so this fund is used to cover that other portion of the Advocacy Center agreement. You'll see there that there's also some in contingencies. So of $32,000. So I know this is brought up from time to time, but if there's ever a request here for something that would relate to these type of expenditures, we can always do a budget amendment and use this fund for those purposes. Fund 163 is our Child Protective Services Fund. This is another bookkeeping fund. It is just a restricted portion of our general fund, but we break it out so that we can monitor it more closely. This fund is set up to hold the transfer that you make to the CPS board each year. So you'll see the transfer coming from the general fund of $40,000. And they use it for clothing, gifts, school supplies, and items throughout the year. Fund 165 is our Drug and Alcohol Program Fund. So this fund holds the fees that are charged to defendants that are included in the Drug and Alcohol Court program. And so then those fees are used to help fund that program and its related cost. The budget is consistent with the prior year. So, this is where we have our contract with Baylor. So you'll see that in professional services. And then there's an amount in contingencies that will continue to roll forward until needed. Fund 166 is a fairly new fund. We did have it, of course, last year, but new in the grand scheme of things. This is the Veterans Treatment Court Program Fund. So it was also established to account for the fees that are charged to our defendants that are participating in this program. So, and just a little side note, we had a Veterans Court grant. That grant is closing out. It ended July 31st. So we will probably be seeing some requests for this fund more than we did last year, just because that grant has gone away. But right now, we just have it budgeted in contingencies until that time. Fund 167 is our Juvenile Delinquency Prevention Fund, also a fund with a small amount, but we have to account for a fee that's known as the Juvenile Delinquency Prevention and Graffiti Eradication Fee. And it is collected from defendants convicted on graffiti offenses. The funds can only be used to repair damage caused by graffiti or for educational purposes. for rewards for offender information and for specific teen programs.
Question.
Yes,
How many more of these do we have?
just 4, 5.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'll go quick. So again, this is something we haven't had a need for. It's a smaller amount of revenue, but
Right.
continues to sit. Fund 168, Local Truancy Prevention and Diversion Fund. It says used to account for our court cost on misdemeanor offenses. The funds can only be used to be spent on the salary of a juvenile case manager, very specific position.
So it's different than that truancy court earlier?
Yes. That was used to help fund the courts that hear the truancy cases. This is to be used for what they would call a juvenile case manager. We do not have that type of position, so the funds sit here. A lot of counties don't, and the question is always coming up, what are we supposed to do this if we don't have the position? And they've said, just sit on it. I think at some point, they're gonna say, hey, if you don't have this position, you can use it for X, Y, and Z. But until that time.
This is a fee that's collected also?
Correct. Fund 170 is our law library fund. Again, one we use a lot and are familiar with, but they are derived from our law library fees that are assessed on each civil case. And we use this for legal reference materials as well as a portion of a salary in the judge's office. That position helps administer the law library, so we charge a portion of that here.
And when we build the new facilities, one of the plans is to, that we've told the architect to look at an appropriate place to put the law library in that new facility. And
More accessible, hopefully.
Yeah, it will be, and the attorneys really like the idea.
And because so many judges, of course, have gone to electronic legal references now instead of the paper, that fund balance is building up there. We just don't spend as much as we used to. So there is over 300,000 in contingencies. So
we'll
we need to keep in mind for these costs. Fund 175, District Clerk Errors and Omissions, it's just used to account for a filing fee and is dedicated to expenditures for lost claims against the District Clerk's office.
Now, is that used to buy a policy, or is it used to just
Pay out claims?
Just pay out claims.
Currently, we're just using it to pay out the claims, which
Can you buy a policy, errors and omission policy?
So we do have numerous policies for elected officials, but I'll have to dig into it and see if we could use this for the actual policy. The way it reads, I think it is just for lost claims, but we can dig a little further and see.
And it would be, that E&O would be specific to the district clerk?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. But we don't really have anything that comes up here, luckily, so that fund balance just grows. Fund 265 is our DA Pretrial Intervention Program Fund. So this houses the revenue that comes in through the PTIP program and then funds that program. It does house 1.8 full-time employees here because one of their employees is not 100% PTIP. So we fund the portions that are attributable to this program here. And then Fund 267, this is the last one, Court-Initiated Guardianship Fund. So this is established to account for the court-initiated guardianship fees. So it may be used only to supplement other county funds used to pay guardian ad litems, attorney ad litems, and fund local guardianship programs. In the past, we haven't used this. It's been used very minimally. So this year, because the fund balance has grown, what we did was the guardianship services line that is actually in the county judge's office, we lowered that in the general fund and then brought the cost over here so that we could use up this fund. Again, it's one that we'll have to balance based on revenue each year, but we definitely want to use it for its purpose here. So, sorry, I know that was a lot in a short amount of time. But.
Okay,
well done.
Yeah, good job.
Well done, thank you.
All right, any questions anyone would have? All right, we're gonna go into a 5-minute recess, and when I come back, we will go into executive session. And, so, it is 10:24, recess.
Recording in progress.
Go check it out, but you've got cartilages. Cartilage and lymphomas.
Okay, I'm gonna call court back into session. All right, I'd like to go to, executive session, item number section 551.071. This pertains to, settlement offers, and I would like to, ask, IT to leave Dustin Chapman in, and it could be that, Herb may join us, but Dustin, I don't think it's really necessary unless there's a legal question, that you would prefer getting him to answer, because he is familiar with the settlement. I talked to him yesterday.
Sounds good, Judge.
All right, thank you.
Recording in progress.
Okay, let's call court back into session. Is there anything else to come before the court? You have anything, Dustin?
No, sir.
Okay, otherwise we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Recording stopped.